Hey, everybody, and thank you for joining us. I am Darian Aaron, editor-at-large of The Reckoning, and today I am thrilled to be in conversation with Mr. Sean J. Young. Sean is an attorney and legal director of the ACLU of Georgia. And with election season upon us and early voting already underway in the state of Georgia, it's imperative that you're equipped with the information that you need in order to successfully cast your ballot in the 2020 election. Sean is here to tell you everything you need to know. So Sean, hey, and welcome to The Reckoning.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right in.
All right.
My first question to you, and I don't think it's hyperbole when I say this, this is one of the most important elections of our lifetime. So can you speak to why it's important that minority voters, in particular, people of color and LGBTQ people, participate in the 2020 election?
Absolutely. There are a lot of issues that affect people of color and LGBTQ people at stake in this election, which is why it's critical that people vote. When turnout from certain demographic groups reaches a certain level, politicians pay attention. The other reason why it's so important to vote is in recognition of our history. People have fought and bled and died to buy the precious right to vote for people of color. This country has had over 150 years or centuries of voter suppression against people of color, which is why it is so important, in a way, paradoxically, that people go out to vote.
Yeah, and we've already seen record turnout for early voting here in the state of Georgia. What advice can you give to people to just stick it out, to stay in line? And is the long lines that we're seeing a form of voter suppression?
Well, actually, I want to start by saying that the long lines are not so long now. That's actually an important message I want to get out there because I don't want people to be discouraged. In some counties, are the lines longer than ideal? Yes, but we're not seeing the, many hours long lines right now. For instance, on Wednesday, I'm a Fulton County voter. I voted at the State Farm Arena, and my wait was 15 minutes. We've had other stories from voters in DeKalb who only waited 15 to 20 minutes. Gwinnett, it's still not where it needs to be, but they post their waiting times online. And again, depending on the location, and I want to remind everyone, you can vote at any early voting location in your county, have posted wait times of 20 minutes. Cobb is still not where we want to be, but it's about 30 to 60 minutes, but please wait it out. The other message I want to say is make a commitment to vote this week. Do not wait. Please do not wait. Vote this week, whether it's by absentee ballot or voting early in person. Don't say, maybe the lines will get better next week. Oh, maybe lines will get better. The lines often get longer toward the close of the early voting period. And do not wait to vote on election day. Don't do it. Get it done now. If you have the luxury and the privilege of taking time off to vote early in person, and it's safe for you to do so in light of the pandemic, please vote this week.
I'm glad you mentioned the pandemic because I know that's at the forefront of a lot of voters' minds, their own personal safety. So can you tell us some other ways that people can vote that will ensure their safety, that doesn't require them to actually physically go to the polls?
Of course. If you are at risk for COVID, you can cast a ballot by mail. It's called absentee voting, but it's a little bit, that term can be a little confusing because everyone can vote absentee. Everyone can vote by mail. If you have not requested an absentee ballot yet, do it today. Go to the Secretary of State website and fill out the online application form. And once you do that, your absentee ballot should arrive in the mail around, in the worst case scenario, 5 business days, not 5 days, but 5 business days. And some people might think, that's a long time, and it is, which is why you need to do it today. If you have your absentee ballot, you need to put it in today. Now, how do you return your absentee ballot? Most people think, well, you just drop it in your mailbox. Do not do that. drop it off at a drop box. And this is all listed publicly at your county. Find out where a drop box is. You don't need to use postage, and drop it in. If at all possible, do not put it in the mail. We don't have a lot of time. I know it's only October 16th. Election day isn't November 3rd. Election day is now. So you need to put your absentee ballot in right now.
Really great information. Thank you, Sean. And this is probably going to seem very basic, but I'm sure there's some folks out there that are confused about what they need to have on their person as they're going to vote.
Yes.
So can you speak to that?
Excellent question. You need to bring a form of photo identification in order to vote. I get a lot of understandable questions about Georgia driver's licenses, because I know not everyone is great about updating their driver's licenses in a timely manner, and some folks have expired licenses. Let me emphasize that expired licenses and licenses that do not reflect your current address are valid forms of ID. A lot of poll workers don't do this, know that, or enforce that consistently. A lot of poll workers, quite understandably, want to see that your address on your license matches the address on your registration form. Do not let them do that. Please do not let them do that, because I hear a lot of reports about that happening. The purpose of photo identification is to verify your identity, not your address. If you think of it this way, you can vote with your passport, and your passport doesn't reflect your current address. So do not let them disenfranchise you because of an address issue. If you are voting absentee, you do not need to include a copy of your photo ID. There is a narrow exception. If you have registered to vote by mail or by email, for the very first time, sorry, you can't register by email, by mail for the very first time in Georgia, and you are voting for the first time in Georgia via absentee, you do have to include a copy of your photo ID. Those are the only people, however. In order to find out whether you're one of those people, it should be reflected in your My Voter page. What's the My Voter page? It is the website that everyone needs to have bookmarked and everyone needs to check on a regular basis. It will tell you your registration status. It will list early voting locations. It will list your polling place. That website is mvp.sos.ga.gov.
I'm glad you mentioned that website, because I actually went to check my voter registration status before I went to vote on Monday. I voted on the very first day. I'm a Fulton County voter. I voted at a Buckhead location, and it was a 4-hour wait for me, but I waited it out, and I'm glad that I did. But when I went to that website to check my status, it said inactive. And I know that that might scare a lot of folks, but I was still able to vote. So an inactive status doesn't mean that you're not registered, and it doesn't mean that you're unable to vote. So I just thought I would put that out there as well.
Thank you. Okay. That's really important.
Yeah. So what should voters do if they come up against a form of disenfranchisement at the polls? Let's say that a poll worker says you're not registered and you know that you are.
Yeah, the general response is you should call the Election Protection Hotline. It's 866-OUR-VOTE, OURVOTE. The ACLU of Georgia is specifically looking into rejected absentee ballot issues. If your absentee ballot is rejected for a reason that doesn't make sense to you, please email ballot@acluga.org. The reason, this actually raised a good point about why people should vote early in person. These issues get flagged. And if and when you vote this week, you will have a full 2 weeks to resolve whatever issue is involved. If you voted provisional ballot, the deadline for resolving provisional ballot issues is 3 days after Election Day. If you vote on Election Day, that's not a lot of time. So you should vote this week. The more people that vote this week, the less drama we're going to see on Election Day.
Yeah. And I know that people are going to be turning out for early voting, especially after seeing this interview with you. Hopefully they'll be inspired to get out and early vote. what should they do in the event that they're still in line, if there's a long line and they're still in line and the poll closes?
Great question. Under the law, you are still allowed to vote. So the way it works is that when the polls close, what they are supposed to do, then they mark the end of the line. So people who arrive after the polls close will not be allowed to vote. But if you are still standing in line after the polls close, you will still be able to vote.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's all I have. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, Sean? You've given us some really great information.
No, not really. I think I made my points. Again, vote this week. Election day is now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Sean.
Thank you for having me.